we start recording anyway, because I don't know if Valentina had some trouble. I don't know if she was sending me any message. No, actually, probably. I hope she wasn't forgetting it.
No,
Okay,
no.
no, I don't think
It
so.
was no, no.
Okay, let's try to do this. So we have done this with you
Yes,
remember
last time.
last time we arrived here, and then from we have to do the listening. That is the second listening, and the second part of the listening, where there's a long things, a long a person that is speaking, and you have to put some words in it.
Yes,
You did
but
it, this
we
one.
did it.
Oh yes, this one is the one.
No,
Okay.
I tried to do this one.
Oh, this one. Yes, that was the one.
I tried to do this, but I thought that it was more easy, but it's not.
It's not so easy. It's not so easy. Yes,
Important.
because it's always dealing with distractions. Okay, of the 5 different people.
Yeah. And I tried that many times, and so I told me
It's better we do together. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So let's start now. To hear these people, choose use a letter once, extra week. Y, C is correct, and because you got, all these things. Let's do this. I'm going to read it like you were listening, and then we decide how to do it. So I kept looking at my watch, and I realized I wasn't going to make it. They told me that if I didn't get it on time this morning, I'd have to look for another job. So this was a disaster. But it was so unfair. I've done everything right. I'd got up at 7:30, left the house at 8, and got the early train into town. It was just my bad luck that it broke down as soon as it left the station. I thought of calling to explain what happened, but I couldn't find my phone, and at first I thought a thief must be having taken it. Then I remembered that in my hurry to go out, I'd left it on the kitchen table. Okay, so what do you say? This person, this is speaker 1,
Yeah.
actually the problem is, because the question is, you have to choose, they are just talking about unfortunate events.
Yes.
So the event this speaker that is speaker 1 is talking about is that he was arriving late for work. Okay, yes. And we understand it here.
Yeah.
From these 2 underlined sentences. Okay, now we are going to see here. They say why A and G are wrong. So A, having something stolen. So they say that this is the distraction. You could have been mistaken by listening. At first, I thought a thief must have taken it.
Yeah.
So you could think that the right answer was having something stolen. But then I say that I remember that in my hurry to go out, I left on the kitchen table. So it's not A.
No.
Okay. No. And it's not G, missing a train, because he say, I caught the early train into town. But it was broken. It was breaking down. So that was, but the unluck event was this. So what they want to tell you, they want just to tell you that actually you can be mistaken by some distractions, like they are here when they talk about a thief, or when they talk about a train.
Train.
So you can be distracted by this. So now we are going to listen to speaker 2 and try to answer the same question. So which is correct? A, B, D, E, F, or G? Of course, it's not C because we already used up C. So you can cancel C. And now you listen to this other person, that is speaker 2, and you decide which was his or her unfortunate event. Okay?
Yeah. My husband.
It's going out.
Listening test 1. Part 3. Training.
Is home.
It seemed to me that everything had gone quite well. I was really nervous, of course, but I'd gone at about the right speed, and I hadn't made any serious mistakes, or had an accident, or anything like that, so I was fully expecting to pass this time. But when it was over, and I let go of the steering wheel, I noticed the expression on the guy's face, and I just knew I'd have to take it again in a few months. So, until then, it'll be back to waiting at bus stops and on railway platforms, or asking friends to give me a lift. And on top of that, I'll have to pay for more lessons, which I really can't afford.
I
Okay.
failing a test.
Failing a test. And do you even imagine what kind of test could it be?
Yes, driving test.
Very good, excellent, very good. Yes, because it's talking about steering wheel.
Yes.
And then when I stop the car, of course, and everything. So it's the driving test. Very good, excellent, this one. Let me send a message to Vale because
yes.
I don't know what's happening.
Yes. It's worrying.
Yeah, because usually she sent me a message. She's got
she's a punctual, and so it's strange.
Yeah.
But it's close to you.
She's very close to me. Because yes, she's 500 meters from the place where I live. I mean, the shop, her shop. Because usually she closed the shop, and this is the lunchtime. The shop. Oh, he's coming. Okay, good. And yeah, so the.
Eccola.
Oh, eccola. Oh, Vale. We were so worried about.
Yeah. I forgot it.
No.
I told you, Rossana, because I say, I'm afraid she could even forgot, because probably, yesterday, no. Yesterday, I forgot one student.
Oh.
No.
Actually, it was a student that was missing many lessons. So I just forgot that was that time. I say, but you didn't call me. And I say, I knew you could have mistaken, no problem. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Yeah, because
it's the spring, Vale.
I had the lunch and I was in late with my lunch at the bookshop.
Yeah, I thought I thought that it could be possible. So I said, let me send a message to her. But as soon as I was sending you the message, you were entering. So good. Okay.
For me, it could happen at the end of this month when I closed financial quarter. Because I'm so busy. So probably could be.
For me, May is the worst period actually, but I'm lucky this year because I don't have so many school shows that I hate. But I have to, and now they are calling me to do. Oh, we can arrange a school show this year. I say sorry, I'm too busy with the exam. I can't do any show this year. I'm sorry. Not even on a Saturday. Let's talk about it. I don't know. Because, you know, on a Saturday, wow. Anyway, we didn't do a lot. We were just seeing the last listening that you were supposed to have a look together. Yeah. And now we are going to get into the part 3 of the listening. Okay.
Which page?
The page is
56.
56, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just the 5 speakers and the 8 sentences. So this is people talking about habits they find difficult to control. So they could not be good habits, but bad habits usually. Or they could also be good habits, but habits that if you go to do them too much, they became bad habits. Because anything could become, when it's too much, it's too much. Even a good practice.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are those habits. So you have 8 habits here. Eating unhealthy food, doing too much exercise, buying unnecessary items, watching too much television, spending too much time online, oversleeping, working too hard, arriving late for everything. But of course, the speakers, they are just 5. So that means that 3 of these habits are not mentioned, or at least they could even mention them, but they are not the main topic of their speeches. Okay? So we are going to listen to the 5 speakers all together twice. And then you give your answer. But let's have a look to some of the advice they are going to give us. A, be careful. One person buys unhealthy food, but doesn't eat it. So be careful. This is eating unhealthy food, not buying it. Okay?
Okay.
So be careful. 4 speakers mentioned exercise or sport, but only one says that they do too much. Okay. 3 speakers talk about shopping, but only one buys unnecessary items, like it's written here. Watching TV is mentioned by 3 speakers, but only one watches it too much. One speaker mentions spending a lot of time online, but is referring to other people. 4 speakers talk about their sleeping habits, but do any of them sleep too much? Take care with different meanings of work and job. Listen for someone who's late for everything, not just one thing, because here they say arriving late for everything, not just arriving late at work or something different. Okay, so now be careful, listen to all of them. Let me see if I shared the, yes, that's fine. And this is listening number 7. Sorry, I didn't open it. Okay.
Listening test 1, part 3. You will hear 5 short extracts in which people talk about habits they find difficult to control. For questions 19 to 23, choose from the list A to H the habit each person has. Use the letters only once. There are 3 extra letters which you do not need to use. You now have 30 seconds to look at part 3. Speaker 1.
It starts as soon as I get home in the early evening. I have a quick snack and then log on to one of my favourite sites. Soon I've filled up my basket with all kinds of things. Whether I actually need any of them is irrelevant. And then head for the checkout. It's all so quick and easy. Sometimes I'm watching TV and there's an ad for a tasty-looking ready meal, and I'll log back on for a minute and order that too. Though when it's actually delivered, it usually turns out to be just junk food and it ends up in the bin.
Speaker 2.
I first realised something wasn't quite right when I...
Eccola, Paola, teacher.
Siete cadute? L'ho visto.
No.
You fall down.
You fall.
Don't leave us.
Me ne sono accorta. Aspettate.
We are afraid without you.
Mi sono frizzata da sola, mi ha buttato fuori da sola. Ha fatto tutto lui. Ok, sorry. Ah, ok. Allora, lo rimando da capo, naturalmente.
Ok.
Vi volevo anche dire questo. Perché li fa ascoltare tutti e 5 di seguito la prima volta e di nuovo tutti e 5 di seguito e non 1, 2 volte, 2 volte, 2 volte? Perché dovete avere anche la possibilità di prendere appunti, nel senso che questo non è detto che la prima risposta che voi date sia quella che ritenete definitiva, perché voi ve lo segnate, però può anche darsi che dopo ascoltate quello successivo che è più aderente alla risposta che avete appena dato, per cui lo sostituite, perché deve essere solo uno, per cui e per questo è importante ascoltarli tutti e 5 per poi incrociarli. Ci sei, Rossana, che sei?
Sì.
Ah, ok.
Sì,
No, perché eri molto ferma. Adesso ho paura che se vi fermate sono io che sono uscita fuori. Ok, ripartiamo. Però naturalmente non faccio andare il minuto di silenzio.
No.
Lo mandiamo direttamente.
For some time.
Aspettate che lo mando da capo. Ok.
Un minuto di raccoglimento.
No, non ci serve.
Speaker 1.
It starts as soon as I get home in the early evening. I have a quick snack and then log on to one of my favourite sites. Soon I've filled up my basket with all kinds of things. Whether I actually need any of them is irrelevant. And then head for the checkout. It's all so quick and easy. Sometimes I'm watching TV and there's an ad for a tasty-looking ready meal, and I'll log back on for a minute and order that too. Though when it's actually delivered, it usually turns out to be just junk food and it ends up in the bin.
Speaker 2.
I first realised something wasn't quite right when I kept falling asleep at all hours of the day. Getting up around 7 isn't easy when you've been up till 2 the night before, but somehow I never managed to log off until then. There are just so many great sites, particularly news and sports, and also shopping, though I rarely end up buying anything. According to a quiz I did, I do seem to have an addiction, though compared to things like overeating, I don't think it's a particularly harmful one. I mean, I'm quite fit, and unlike some of my colleagues, I always get to the office on time.
Speaker 3.
I always feel I have to be doing something. I just don't feel right if I'm not working on my fitness level, and the possible long-term effects of that are beginning to concern me. It also affects my life right now in various ways. For instance, I always go to bed late and get up early. I also need bigger meals than less active people, and although I always choose food that's good for me, it can be rather expensive and hard to find in the shops. At least, though, the fact that I go everywhere around town on foot means that I'm never held up by traffic.
Speaker 4.
It was on all the time in my parents' home, and it's like that here in my own flat. Usually the same channel too, because to tell the truth, I'm totally hooked on the same kinds of series. It's odd in a way because most people of my generation spend all their time on the internet, or, in the case of the fitter ones, doing sport every evening and weekend. I know my own lifestyle isn't particularly healthy, though at least nowadays I'm up reasonably early, unlike back in my student days when I often had trouble getting out of bed before noon.
Speaker 5.
It's always my intention to set off in plenty of time, but somehow there always seems to be something that holds me up. It may be a job that needs finishing off, an email that has to be answered, or even a TV programme that hasn't quite ended. Then I end up literally running to wherever I'm going, always the last to turn up, and also often the most stressed one too. I've tried getting up earlier in the morning so that I have more hours in the day to get everything done, but the lack of sleep just makes me feel tired later on and doesn't help at all.
That is the end of part 3.
Okay, now listen to it again. How was it? So and so. Let's decide after the second time that we hear.
So we can decide not to do exercise.
You can change your answer.
Speaker 1.
It starts as soon as I get home in the early evening. I have a quick snack and then log on to one of my favourite sites. Soon I've filled up my basket with all kinds of things. Whether I actually need any of them is irrelevant, and then head for the checkout. It's all so quick and easy. Sometimes I'm watching TV and there's an ad for a tasty-looking ready meal, and I'll log back on for a minute and order that too. Though when it's actually delivered, it usually turns out to be just junk food and it ends up in the bin.
Speaker 2.
I first realised something wasn't quite right when I kept falling asleep at all hours of the day. Getting up around 7 isn't easy when you've been up till 2 the night before, but somehow I never managed to log off until then. There are just so many great sites, particularly news and sports, and also shopping, though I rarely end up buying anything. According to a quiz I did, I do seem to have an addiction, though compared to things like overeating, I don't think it's a particularly harmful one. I mean, I'm quite fit, and unlike some of my colleagues, I always get to the office on time.
Speaker 3.
I always feel I have to be doing something. I just don't feel right if I'm not working on my fitness level, and the possible long-term effects of that are beginning to concern me. It also affects my life right now in various ways. For instance, I always go to bed late and get up early. I also need bigger meals than less active people, and although I always choose food that's good for me, it can be rather expensive and hard to find in the shops. At least, though, the fact that I go everywhere around town on foot means that I'm never held up by traffic.
Speaker 4.
It was on all the time in my parents' home, and it's like that here in my own flat. Usually the same channel too, because to tell the truth, I'm totally hooked on the same kinds of series. It's odd in a way because most people of my generation spend all their time on the internet, or, in the case of the fitter ones, doing sport every evening and weekend. I know my own lifestyle isn't particularly healthy, though at least nowadays I'm up reasonably early, unlike back in my student days when I often had trouble getting out of bed before noon.
Speaker 5.
It's always my intention to set off in plenty of time, but somehow there always seems to be something that holds me up. It may be a job that needs finishing off, an email that has to be answered, or even a TV programme that hasn't quite ended. Then I end up literally running to wherever I'm going, always the last to turn up, and also often the most stressed one too.
I've tried getting up earlier in the morning so that I have more hours in the day to get everything done. But the lack of sleep just makes me feel tired later on and doesn't help at all.
Okay.
That is the end of part 3.
Thank you. So, what do you say? So, speaker 1, 19. What do you put?
C.
You put C. And Ross?
Yes, probably. Because the speaker 1 says that he likes to watch the TV and advertisement and ready meal and put this in the in a dustbin spazzatura.
Yeah, dustbin. Yes,
dustbin.
You did well.
So probably it's true.
So you think it's C. Buy unnecessary items. It is. It is. Okay. Speaker 1 is C. Is buying unnecessary items. She started to buy everything online from TV and even food that then she doesn't eat, actually. She's just buying and buying. Okay.
It wasn't so easy to understand that speak about buying unnecessary items. It was not so.
She doesn't say buy unnecessary items. She say I buy everything even if I don't need them.
Yeah.
And then she say even some food that actually when it's arriving I realize that it's just junk food and it's going directly to the dustbin. Yeah. And this means to buy unnecessary items. Yeah, because they never use the same word that you got here in the sentence. That's why, yes, of course. Okay, then we got speaker 2. What does it say?
In this case, speaker 2.
I put E.
You put E.
E come elephant.
Yes, of course.
And you? Elephant. I don't know because he says about overeating. He is quite fat, so it seems that eating unhealthy food, but I don't know.
You think eating unhealthy food. And Vale, why do you think it is spending too much time online?
He compares his friends who spend a lot of time watching TV. And in spite of him that he's always online and he is addicted.
Is addicted, actually, yes, and is correct because it is E. Is spending too much time online. The thing is that he realized that it was too much because he's very tired in the morning, because he's not going to bed before 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then at 7 he has to wake up to go to work. That's just because but he said that it's so interesting, you know, sports, news, shopping, everything. It seems so interesting to him. So he can't stop to stay online. Okay, he said the food that is not so unhealthy in comparison. No, it's not that one. It's another one that say the unhealthy food. It's not him. I'm just confusing one to another. Okay, so that was number 2. Speaker number 3, that was 21.
It seems doing too much exercise.
Yes, she's doing too much exercise. Yes, as she said that the only good thing is that as she's always walking, she doesn't get stuck into the traffic. Yeah. Okay, that was good. Speaker 4, 22.
I think watching too much television.
And you, Ross?
Because he says that he is a home flat, so someone that is always at home. They free time on internet. They spend the free time on internet. But
so you think this one is E?
Yes.
No, actually it was D, because he say that he spend too much time watching television. That is quite unusual for people of his generation, because they always get onto the internet whilst is spending time watching series on television.
Yes,
and you know that is not very healthy way.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, because I left the other people spend their free time on
That's
internet.
That's it.
So I write this.
You write well, and you say, yeah.
I forget,
okay, good.
Point.
And what about speaker 5? Last one.
Working too hard.
I think age.
Arriving late for everything.
Yeah, not only for work, but also because she likes watching TV.
Yes, for everything. Actually, it's like an excuse. She finds something to do at the very last moment. So the result of this is that she's always arriving late for everything. Okay.
For me, it's difficult. Because for my...
Yeah, Valentina got all of them. Very good. Super job. Fantastic.
I didn't understand the first step, the first speaker talking about it.
Yes, but you know, I think it's even a matter of use, because probably you've been using a lot to listen to people speaking English, even when you don't understand.
Yeah.
And that is the first step, because, you know, to stay in places where there are a lot of people speaking in English and you realize that you don't understand, but you are on. So you start, so you understand 3 words from a person, another 2 words from another, and then you're trying to combine together a kind of speech. And that is a very good listening exercise you've been doing during all these years. And this is why actually who has got a better listening is just because he had more practicing. Just there's nothing. But Ross, your listening is still okay. It's okay. You have just to be more careful on details. So when they say that, who is speaking and why, you know, all the advices that they have been given here. For example, when they talk about television, or they say, for example, the one that is watching, spending too much time online, he actually doesn't realize that it's a bad habit, because he also say, it's not unhealthy because anyway, I'm getting fit. I never go late for work. There are some people that are overweight. And those habits are much more dangerous than mine. So actually, it doesn't accept the fact that to stay too much online, it could be a problem. That's why it's also confusing you, because they do not speak as it was a real problem. Okay, but it's okay, it's correct, that's fine. What about listening part 4? Do you remember what was listening part 4?
No.
Was the interview to one person, or one person speaking about himself, himself or herself, it depends. And there are all the questions that are in order of listening, and you have to write down your choice. So you got a multiple choice, and I think there are 8 questions.
Okay.
But the speech is just one. That could be just one person speaking, or an interview with 2 people and various questions. Okay?
Okay.
So what do you have to understand? Attitude, opinion, guess, main ideas, and specific information. Okay?
Guess
Action, ideas.
Okay.
Is another way of saying ideas.
Yes.
Yes,
But
ideas.
it is it's more useful, not useful, used gifts in other parts of this book.
No, yes, just when they explain. When they explain what you have, you know, gives opinions, your everything. That's just a word like another. Okay, now let's listen for cues. To understand when a cue, that is something that is advising you that the answer is going to be done, they are quite difficult to understand it. Now let's see this exercise that we have here at page 57. Study this multiple choice question and the extract from the recorded script. It is from a radio interview in which Dave Harris asked Lucy Williams about her work as a police officer. Why is A correct and why B and C are wrong? But first of all, let's see what do they mean by Q. Okay. The question is, how does Lucy feel about her work now? So tell me, Lucy, what you have found to be positive things about police work? What's the negative side to it? Of course, when is an interview, it's very easy to find the cue. That means to understand when the answer will be given. Because that's the question and then the answer. So all the questions are in order and you know that. It's much more difficult to find the cue that means when they will see the answer, they will say the answer, if it's just one long speech. So understand the cue with an interview is very easy actually. Okay, anyway, let's listen to this. How does Lucy feel about her work now? So tell me, Lucy, what do you have found to be positive things about police work? What's the negative side to it? Well, I often come into contact with people who are upset or angry, maybe because in trouble, and I have to calm them down. And in some cases, make it clear that I'm in authority. But I just see that as a part of the job. And in fact, I'd probably miss it if we were given a desk job. I'd find that really dull compared to being out on the street, which is always interesting because no 2 days are ever the same. You never know what to expect next, and that's great. Okay, now, the answer here is, they say, A. She likes the fact that she never gets bored. And you understand here, always interesting because no 2 days are ever the same. You never know what to expect next, and that's great. So actually the answer of this question is given at the end. But be careful because before that, there are 2 big distractions that are C and B. She dislikes having to deal with aggressive people. What does she say about aggressive people? I just see that, you know, sometimes I have aggressive people, she say, but I just see that as part of the job. And in fact, I'd probably miss it. So she doesn't say that she dislikes having to deal with aggressive people. She said that is a part of the job. It's normal.
Okay.
And then she would prefer to work in an office. No, because she say here, a desk job that I find really dull. What does it mean, dull?
Noioso.
Brava. Perfectly. Boring. Boring.
Boring.
Yeah. Dull. Boring. Okay. So you see, she in the same question, she's mentioning all of the three items, but actually two are just denied and one is the correct one. Okay. So now let's look the next question of the same interview, and we listen to the same student, to another extract. Now you have to do the same work, that is listening. Instead of me, you listen to the listening. Then you decide which one is correct and why the other two are not. Okay, let's try with the first listening.
Listening test 1. 4. Training.
So what would you say to somebody who, say, is about to leave school and is considering becoming a police officer?
Well, I'd strongly recommend getting some experience of life, understanding how the world works, by working in something else first. Many would benefit from doing a degree, perhaps in law, and the starting salary would be higher. There are some great careers in the police force these days, though everyone has to start as an ordinary officer, working long hours and often finding themselves in difficult situations. But it's a great challenge.
Okay. I let you listen again and then tell me what is the cue. Okay, the cue, it doesn't matter. But why are the two other wrong and which one is correct?
Listening test 1. Part 4. Training.
So what would you say to somebody who, say, is about to leave school and is considering becoming a police officer?
Well, I'd strongly recommend getting some experience of life, understanding how the world works, by working in something else first. Many would benefit from doing a degree, perhaps in law, and the starting salary would be higher. There are some great careers in the police force these days, though everyone has to start as an ordinary officer, working long hours and often finding themselves in difficult situations. But it's a great challenge.
Okay, so which one do you think is the correct one?
The first no, because she discouraged to leave the university.
Oh, to leave, yes. So she's encouraging people to stay and study in the university.
Yes, to get
very
the
good.
degree.
Very good. Then?
Begin by work part-time, I don't listen anything of that, but probably is the C, the
last one.
Do a different job before joining the police.
An experience in life, she said.
Yeah, that's it. She say, actually she say, I strongly recommend working in something else first before becoming a police officer. That means having more experience in life and to do something different, and anyway study, as Rosanna say. So C is the correct one, and it's correct that A is not, for the reason that Rosanna was mentioning, and is not B, because actually she indicates that it is impossible to work part-time, because usually to be police officer is you have to work long hours. She mentioned long hours. Okay, very good. That is splendid. Okay, that means that we can do this. Now, the cue in an interview is quite easy because, as I told you, when they ask it, that means that then you got the reply. You have just to be very careful if there's no interview, but just one complete speech. So that it could be a bit more difficult, but not really, because your understanding is not bad at all. Let's start to listen now to Leonie Steiner, that she's talking to an interviewer about her work as a music teacher in a school. And you have to choose the best answer. So let's try to do it. You got your book in front of you. So the minute that you have before the listening is starting, trying to have a skimmer, very, very quick look into the various questions more than the reply, just to know what I'm going to say, okay? Let's go and this is number 9.
Listening Test 1, Part 4. You will hear Leonie Steiner talking to an interviewer about her work as a music teacher in a school. For questions 24 to 30, choose the best answer, A, B or C. You have 1 minute to look at Part 4.
Okay, have a quick look. More than 1 minute. No, it's 1 minute now. Okay.
I have with me Leonie Steiner, who's had a distinguished career both as a pianist and as a music teacher. Leonie, who was your first ever piano teacher?
There's a long piano-playing tradition in my family, and from a very early age I was keen to start playing. In earlier generations, fathers and mothers had taught daughters and sons, but both of mine were working full-time. So, from the beginning, they had me taught at home by a tutor. That would have been shortly before my first year at primary school, where I also had lessons.
And when did you actually start giving lessons?
In my late teens, by which time I was giving solo performances. Some professional musicians give private classes to make enough to live on, or perhaps to find out whether they would make good teachers. But for me, it was never a conscious decision to become a teacher. I'd always enjoyed working with younger students, doing what I could to help them develop as musicians. And without realising it, I was becoming a teacher. And ever since then, that, together with performing, is what I've done.
And what kind of students do you prefer?
I'd say those who perhaps aren't naturally brilliant, but respond well to intensive teaching and go on to become top performers. More so than those who seem to have been born to play at the highest level, or students who've been taught the wrong way and need to get rid of bad musical habits. That can be hard work for both pupil and teacher.
And what do you think of the standard of music education in our schools nowadays?
It varies widely. I get the impression there's been a general shift away from putting pressure on students to achieve exam success to a more skills-based approach, and I think that's to be welcomed. The media sometimes talk about a shortage of qualified music teachers, but I'm not convinced. I'd say there's a much greater need to invest in new pianos, violins and so on, ensuring they're top quality, so that students really like the sound they make. Because the key to success is making sure pupils enjoy their music lessons, both in terms of playing and singing.
Do school music lessons normally include singing these days?
In the majority of cases, they still do. And it's generally popular among pupils. But a lot of them are afraid of doing so in public because of what other people may say or think. That's a great pity, I think. And if a child wants to sing, I feel strongly that they should always be encouraged to do so.
You're very highly regarded by your ex-students, many of whom have gone on to have successful careers. What do you think has made you such a good teacher?
Well, if that's true, it probably has something to do with the fact I've always found it easy to get on with those of a different generation, whether they're at primary school, secondary school or university. In that respect, I don't think I would have benefited from actually being trained at college as a music teacher.
Looking back over your career, what big decisions have you had to make?
Well, in my late 30s, I wondered whether I'd still have the energy needed to keep doing lessons as I got older. But once into my 40s, I found that wasn't an issue. Also, around then, I was offered the position of assistant head, and I had to think carefully about that because I would have been on a much higher salary. But in the end, I said no. It would also have meant I had less time for doing lessons and for performing. My response to an offer of work in another country was the same, though I found it much easier to make up my mind about that one. I've never regretted staying here.
Thank you, Leonie.
Ok, ora ve lo faccio risentire e mi assento un attimo,
That is the end
ve
of
lo
part
rimando
4.
dall'inizio.
I'm sorry, but I need to leave.
Anche tu? Allora facciamo così.
Part 4.
Interrompiamolo, ve lo registro, così, oppure vi mando la registrazione e ve lo risentite con comodo e riprendiamo la volta prossima esattamente da qui, ok? Così ve lo risentite anche 2 o 3 volte. Vi mando subito la registrazione. Facciamo così?
Sì, non era tanto facile perché
no, ci vuole un po' di tempo.
Leggere le risposte e
esatto,
ascoltare.
e ascoltare. Il minuto che c'è prima non è moltissimo per leggere tutto. Leggi le domande ma non fai in tempo a leggere le risposte. Per cui la prima volta devi iniziare a leggere le risposte e la seconda a rispondere. Vi mando subito l'audio così provate a farlo voi da sole, ok?
Grazie.
Un bacio e ci vediamo alla prossima. Ciao care.